let's get to the Denver Broncos. First things first, Matt, I want to talk about this Denver defense, as I've alluded to. They are the worst defense in the league right now, unequivocally. They are number one in yards allowed. They are number one in points allowed, just flat out total. They are number two in passing yards allowed. They are number one in passing touchdowns allowed. They are number one in rushing yards allowed. They are number two in rushing yards per attempt. They are number one in rushing touchdowns allowed. They are number one in yards after contact allowed. They have only gotten three total pressures on quarterbacks in terms of their pressure statistics, three pressures on the entirety of the season. They are getting eviscerated by anybody so far this year. Run or pass, it doesn't matter. They are getting outright carved up. And you have an opportunity as the New York Jets, in my opinion, to inflict your will and your dominance and run this Denver defense out of the stadium. I really, really think that you can take over this game from pretty much any angle you want. You need to have a balanced attack. We don't need Zach Wilson to throw 40 times in this game. We don't need to only have 16 rushing attempts for the entirety of the game. As Robert Saleh said just a handful of minutes ago in the Wednesday press conference, there's no longer a pitch count for Breece Hall. He's back. It's been a handful of weeks. He's ready to go. They're taking the training wheels off. This guy needs 10 to 15 carries in this game, minimum. You need to give him the ball in any way that you can. Let him get revenge on the Denver Broncos. Let him go back to the stadium where he had his ACL tear less than a year ago, and let him take out all of that aggression and frustration on the Broncos defense who took him out from a year before. I think you can have a big game on the ground. Joe Tippmann played some awesome football for the New York Jets last week against Kansas City. He had a play on Breece Hall's long run, 43-yard run, that if Conklin gets one more block, it's probably in a 35-yard touchdown, 35 extra yards and a touchdown. You get Joe Tippmann leaking out in front, gets up on a linebacker, and takes the linebacker 20 yards downfield on the play. Not even get a chance to touch him on Hall. They had another play, which is another Breece Hall run, where it's an outside zone to open the drive on 1st and 10. I think it was one of the few 1st and 10 runs they had. And Tippmann takes the DT and washes him completely out and wides open a lane for Breece Hall, sticks his foot in the ground, gets upfield 11 yards. I think you can have a really, really big game on the ground here. This Denver front is not very tough. Their linebackers are horrendous. They don't know what they're doing, period. They just cut one of their starters in Randy Gregory earlier today because that free agent signing didn't seem to be working out for them. I really think you can take advantage of them on the ground, and I want to see that ground attack be a heavy, not an overwhelming focus. And while I am confident and I don't think you should completely take your foot off the gas from an offensive perspective, I do think you got to run the ball a little bit and you got to take advantage of this poor defense in all aspects.
I completely agree. And I'm looking at some of the injuries that the Broncos have right now. You got Frank Clark. He didn't play last game. Josie Jewell, a starting linebacker, didn't play. He's still injured. You have Justin Simmons, one of the biggest injuries, I would say. He didn't play last week either. He's questionable. So you have a number of injuries that would make this depleted Denver defense even more depleted if none of these guys can go. And I was just looking at something that Saleh said recently about how Hall is no longer on a pitch count, but he wants to get the ball in a bunch of other people's hands. Now, if we're judging Saleh based off of past press conferences and what he says as far as game planning for a week ahead, we can kind of take what he says and reverse it. So I have a feeling this is going to be a Hall breakout game. They're going to feed him a lot. And really, logic says, based off of what he's able to do on a per snap basis as far as production goes, he's the guy you want on the field. He's the guy you want to put the ball in his hands and see what he could do. He still has that initial burst that allows him to explode through holes and get into the open field. His long speed is not back yet, but you know what? He's less than 12 months back from his injury. Ironically happening in the same stadium against the same team that he injured it against. So I feel like this is kind of his homecoming game where we see him get close to 16 touches just by himself instead of 16 touches for all running backs in the game. I think he kind of takes control and they allow Zach to, just take what you can get, not have to be the guy like he was in Kansas City, but all at the same time, don't, you know, neuter him. Take those shots down the field. Do more of these back shoulder passes to tight ends because guess what? They're going to have Sertan on Wilson probably. So that's going to open up the rest of the field with everybody else. Attack it, attack it nonstop. Whether it's with the running backs, with the tight ends, whether it's with Gibson and Hartman using jet motion or however you want to use them to throw different looks at the Denver defense. Throw it all at them. And you know what? The chances are it will all probably work because they haven't shown that they've been able to stop really anything. Like you said, dead last in just about everything on when it comes to defense. I'm sure a lot of those stats are kind of weighted more from that Dolphins game where they got annihilated and treated like a college team. Um, but at the same time, even if you remove that game, I don't think they're much better. So just there's very little you can do other than just be conservative. Just don't do that. Don't go back to the same game plan as we had against New England. Sure, yeah, run the ball, but you know what? If if things aren't going our way, if the Hall game plan doesn't work right away, don't be afraid to change right away and go right back to that Kansas City game plan and just have Zach air it out constantly. Uh, and I would continue to throw it on first down because that seems to be something that really gets him into a rhythm. Uh, so if we can get that going early and still lean on the run, I think that is probably our best bet on offense to really see the production that we need to see in this game after the Kansas City loss.
Yep, for sure. For sure. There's a difference between running the ball conservatively and running the ball aggressively. You can run the ball and still look to be aggressive. You can run the ball and still be explosive. It's not a passing is not the only way you can have an explosive offense. And I think that's an important distinction. You can run the ball in this game and you should run the ball in this game, but you should look to run for chunks. You should look to run for explosives. You shouldn't be looking to run just we're going to get in 13 personnel and here we go inside zone 1st and 10. You can run in ways that allow to take advantage of the speed that your players have. The next point I want to make about this Broncos defense, it really all kind of ties everything together. They are dead last in the NFL in press rate defensively. They keep their corners about 9 to 10 yards off practically every snap. And so there is a ton of space underneath to the outside. You don't have the opportunity for a cornerback playing press coverage to read a toss play, for instance, and knife inside of the wide receiver that's supposed to block him, or maybe the wide receiver looks like he's going to run a route to try and draw the DB to go with him, and the DB reads the play and he shoots underneath, and you cut that lane off for that pitch. You have a ton of space to the outside, to the short and intermediate that you can take advantage of in your run game specifically by getting the ball to the outside on some toss plays, letting Breece Hall do what he did in Denver a year ago, which is take a toss to the edge and run up the sideline for 60-something yards and a touchdown. You can do some similar plays. You can call that reverse we saw to Xavier Gibson that picked up 15 yards against the Chiefs. You can call plays like that because if the end on the play side that you're giving this pitch to, if he doesn't read it perfectly and he doesn't get a hand on Gibson, there's nobody to the edge to get in the way. The Denver linebackers aren't even in the same stadium as the rest of their defense most of the time. They're so lost and they're so unaware as to what's happening. Even, Alex Singleton, who's been one of their main starters, has been horrendous this year, has no clue where to go with his eyes, has no idea what offenses are trying to do to their defense to take advantage of anything that they do. They're lost. You don't have to worry about them getting a read and making a play. you can get the ball to the outside on the edges and pick up some explosives in the run game. And conversely, you can throw the ball on first down. You can be aggressive down the field. You can call the little 8-yard stick route on first down to Garrett Wilson because all he has to do is threaten the tiniest bit vertical, and whatever Broncos cornerback is on the outside is so far off that they're just going to be far away from it. They're going to go, I'm good, get vertical. I'm going to be in slow play this. Garrett snaps it off at 8 yards. He's wide open. Cool. Do it again. You can call screens because who's going to get out to try and choke anything off? You can call so many plays to take advantage of this defense to be explosive. And you don't have to just be looking for kill shots down the field every single play. There are games for that. And we have talked about the games when that should be your focus, when you should look to throw bombs and launch the ball downfield and be aggressive and take your shots. You can take your shots in this game, but you can be, I don't want to say conservative, but you can be controlled and you can be efficient and you can bleed the clock and you can keep your defense fresh and you can steamroll the Denver Broncos by just playing a clean, controlled game that takes advantage of their weakness to the outside. I think the game plan for me, Matt, is just clear as day. I don't see that there's any reason to do anything else. Why would you? Nothing. No other team in the league has done anything else, and the Broncos defense has allowed more yards than anybody. They're number one in yards after contact allowed. So they're going to give you 9 yards of free space underneath and ask their guys to come up and tackle. And they're number one in yards after contact allowed. Sounds like a good plan to me.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to do a reverse engineering of what the Broncos will probably do, and it would probably be the opposite of what you said they've already done. I would play very tight with our receivers, and I would send a lot of people and on a pass rush too with blitzes and exotic blitzes to see if we can get Zach out of rhythm. So I would plan for that. I like you said with screens, with quick pop plays, just things to get him passing the ball quickly into the hands of our star players and kind of reduce the threat of that blitz. Because if we take advantage of that even a little bit at the start, they're going to come off of that real quick and fall back into their usual ways. And at that point, we can pick them apart in all the ways that we just mentioned.
Can I give you a counterpoint, Matt?
Sure.
For an argument's sake, wouldn't that be the plan against the Chicago Bears and Justin Fields too?
Absolutely.
And they sat 9 yards off the whole game.
True. I mean, maybe it takes some people a little bit longer to kind of catch on to the adjustments they need to make.
Well, they won that game. They came back late.
Hopefully
they got down,
they did, but not because of that.
No, but if you're the Denver Broncos, and we've seen the dysfunction from them as an organization and from this team over the first couple of weeks, are you going to sit there and go, "Oh, we won, we finally won, we've been close in every game"? Is that going to be your focus of we need to now change our game plan for an offense that would be better equipped to handle a defense trying to be aggressive against them from what we've seen, as opposed to the Chicago Bears? Or would you stick to what you've been doing because you got to win? Vance Joseph is their defensive coordinator. Vance Joseph has been his cover 3 sky 9 yards off single high safety self for as long as he's been a coach in the NFL. And as we've seen from Robert Saleh, as we've seen from Dan Quinn, as we've seen from Pete Carroll, as we've seen from pretty much every other coach from that tree that has been in that sort of scheme and environment, they've all evolved. They've all changed. They've all added new wrinkles. They're not keeping their corners that far back. The Jets play a lot of off coverage, but it's at about 6 or 7 yards deep, not 9 or 10. And it's a different. This is an archaic defensive scheme with a defensive coordinator that's too stuck in his own ways to change. I don't see any reason why they would change. And if they do, then I think the Jets have the ability and the opportunity to take advantage of that too. But I don't expect anything to change from this Denver defense because they've had multiple opportunities to see that it needed to change before. They had 70 points scored on them by the Miami Dolphins a week before and then went up against a lowly offense in the Chicago Bears and did the exact same thing. Why would they change now?
I mean, you make a very good point, and chances are they probably won't. This is just what I would change if I were them. But you know what? If I don't know. I don't know what goes through their mind when game planning or trying to make mid game adjustments because yeah, we just haven't seen it. I kind of want to shift gears now to maybe the part of the Broncos that we probably would have to worry about, which is their offense. Uh, and because, like you said, they did win last week. They did come back, make an incredible comeback. So their offense is not as inept as they were last year. So maybe they can thank Peyton for that. But you know what? It's something that we should watch. But at the same time, is their offense even close to what the Chiefs' offense is? No, not even close. So, are we? Should we be that worried? No, I'm not as worried about what our defense can do against their offense. Uh, Russell Wilson is not better than Mahomes. He's not more mobile than Mahomes. He's not more accurate than Mahomes. He's not going to make the crazy throws that Mahomes makes. He's still good. He still has it. He's not as washed as everybody thought after last year. Uh, but at the same time, what they offer and what they've been doing, putting out there on a week to week basis, is not something that really inspires fear, especially in a defense as our own, where we still have all the pieces in place to really kind of take this kind of team on and really shut them down and really impose our will and make them play our game. And then that just pushes everything back on our offense. Like that gives our offense the control to to really play the game that we want to play. And if we can get that lead and play with a lead, then that puts our defense in a position where they want to play. They love playing with lead. They want to be uber aggressive and really come after the quarterback. So if we can do that, I think that is something that will pay a very good dividends in the end. Um, I was seeing that DJ Reed's in concussion protocol. Am I seeing that right?
You are.
So that's a little troubling. They still have they still have Judy. They still have
Cortland Sutton.
Sutton. Then they have Marvin Mims. So they
Yep.
still have some weapons on the outside. I think Eccles was hurt last week as
Eccles
well.
is out
So
again this week too.
Eccles is out. So if Reed is out at all, that could be trouble. That's something that I'm worried about. Um, I think that our defense is creative enough to find a way to make do, whether it's move Michael Carter outside and then just use more three safety sets. I could see that being the compensation. Um, we just have to see, but I still think that we have the weapons in place to make plays and be even more aggressive than we've been so far.
Yeah, I agree. My point defensively is you go counterintuitive to how teams were playing the Jets the first couple of weeks. The threat of this Denver offense is their passing attack. It's their wide receivers. Marvin Mims is playing some incredible football for a rookie. He really, really is. And he needs to start getting more attention because the dude is making big plays as a return man, as a receiver, doesn't matter every single game so far. And he is a threat that we need to keep our eyes on. Javonte Williams, their number one running back, was hurt for a good majority of the Bears game. Waiting on word to see whether he's going to play this week. But they had a rookie fill in his place by the name of Jaleel McLaughlin, who had a great game against Chicago that had over 100 total yards, had 70 yards rushing on 7 carries or 72 yards rushing on 7 carries. Small but shifty, explosive, quick, able to make quick cuts. A guy that historically the Jets offense has struggled with when they have to break down and make tackles in space. If they can't read things early and get a clean shot, when they have a guy that's got an opportunity to make somebody miss or get some room to move, they miss tackles. And that's been an issue even going back to last year sometimes. So you have some guys to worry about on offense, but I'm more worried about what Marvin Mims and Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton can do than I am about a rookie Jaleel McLaughlin going again in his second game where as a feature back, yes, he played well against Chicago, but the Bears defense isn't good either. So against our defense, I'm a little more confident. And if you have an offense that can score pretty much whenever they want and is playing controlled football and taking a little time off the clock with the run game and being efficient, you can get up to a lead and then you can suffocate Denver. And you can say, okay, we're going to take away your passing attack. You have to run the ball. And every time you do, the clock just keeps draining. And we're going to wind it down and wind it down. And we're on offense again. And we're going to take 6.5 minutes of offense or 7 minutes of offense. We're going to go down the field and we're going to score again too. Cool. Defense on the field. You're not passing. Run the ball. Catch up to us with the run game. I'm not scared of Russell Wilson. I'm not terrified of the Denver receiving core. But if any unit of the Denver offense is going to win in this game, it's going to be their receiving core and their passing attack. So take that away, make them outscore you with their running game, and see what this Denver offensive line is about going against a tough front like the Jets have. I think you can outright smother them. I think this could. We'll get to predictions in a little bit, but I think this could be a shutout game.
That'd be really nice. You mentioned the run game. I think Javonte Williams also ended up on the injury report after their game against the Bears as well. So if he can't go, that pretty much neuters them and limits them to just the passing game. So once you get a team one dimensional, I think you can really impose your will on them and dictate how you want the game to go. As long as we can lock their passing game down, which I think is more than possible, I think that's the most likely scenario to a game plan where we totally destroy them. And yeah, a shutout could be possible. But you know what? With our defense, I feel like they always have very slow starts. They always seem to spot a score in the first couple drives or even a couple scores. So I can definitely see them taking some shots early and having some success and then bearing down. So I don't see it being a complete shutout, but I think that they will find their bearings early and find their way to play the game they want to play.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, the defense takes a little bit to get into a rhythm to see what their offense is trying to do to attack them, and then they adjust and they get a clue of what's happening, and they usually lock in a little bit more. It's certainly possible that we could see some early shenanigans from Denver that catches them off guard, but they come back and respond after that. But I love this matchup for the Jets as a whole. I really, really do. I think this is you have all of the energy in the world to go out and make a resounding statement. And I really think this will be a huge test for Robert Saleh in particular, because we've seen for a long time the Jets have struggled to handle success. That when they have a big win, that when they have an opportunity to do something well, when they have a reason to celebrate, that the next week they come out flat, they get overconfident, they get right back to their old ways, and then woe is me, here's the disaster again. Well, they didn't win last week. They came close. They got some newfound, residual energy from their offense. They got the fans in the stadium to finally cheer and be loud and be in that environment and feel it. And they got real close. And then in a lot of ways, they might have even gotten cheated. Take all that motivation, take all that improvement, turn around and come out this week against the Denver Broncos and knock them in the dang mouth. Take their lunch money. Go be the bully. Go do whatever you want to this team that is reeling. And I really, really think you can set yourself up to go on a little bit of a stabilization run where maybe you don't beat the Eagles the week after, but you put up a real good fight. You get to your next couple of games after that and you're competing, you win a couple of those, you set yourself up for the lighter half of the schedule at the back half of the season. And maybe you find a way to still sneak out a playoff spot. It's not completely out of the question yet. And I think it can really start this week. If you come out this week as the New York Jets and they're flat and they're back to being conservative completely on offense, and the defense is having miscommunications or missing tackles, and that energy doesn't seem to be there when you have the momentum of playing well in front of the whole world the week before and coming up short, you have the momentum of Sean Payton and everything that he said in the summer about Aaron Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett and the bad blood between the teams as motivation. You have the motivation of Breece Hall and Elijah Vera Tucker, who both lost their seasons in that same stadium a year before. If you can't come out for this week ready to take people's heads off, then what is going to make you want to do it?
I completely agree. We have a real chance here to really build on the momentum that we built in Kansas City, even if it was a loss, like you said. Uh, uh, and yeah, really kind of set in motion a different trajectory for this season because there was a lot of anger, there was a lot of sadness when Rodgers went down, and a lot of that anger and sadness, filled the Twitter sphere and the radio sphere and everywhere across the medias and the fandom to the point where it was a lost season before it even started. And now we've got a glimpse of hope that's just glimmering there in the corner of our eyes. And all we need to do is just turn a little and we can see it a little bit more clearly. And that starts this week with a nice, confident win.